TRT analysis, we would do a functional leg length reflex, making sure the patient is lined up, EOP down to the coccyx. So I want the lift of the table to be at where the shoelace and then the seam of the table. So patient has a right short leg, so can you turn your head to the left, please? I'm checking for cervical syndrome right now. So if the legs were to balance, go ahead and turn your head back in the middle. Thanks. It could be posterior rotation of C1, so I'll check that. And if the legs balance, then I'll check for right and left torque. And then if that were to balance the legs, then I will set up C1 like this. And then if it's not C1, that could be C5. So if we'll check C5. And then the liner drive would be like this. And again for C5, you would check right or left torque. Okay. And so if that was not the case, then the patient will turn his head to the short leg side. So turn your head to the right. And if the leg's perfectly balanced, that would be a positive wrong-end test. So turn your head back to the middle, which would indicate lateral atlas. If the legs were perfectly balanced. So go ahead and come on this side. So I'll pressure test like this, straight lateral to medial. Check the legs, check for right and left torque. And then the liner drive would be straight lateral to medial. Okay? And so if that's not the case, then can you turn your head to the left? And can you turn your head to the right? So this would be a bilateral cervical syndrome if when the patient turns left, the left leg goes short, and the patient turns to the right leg goes short. So go ahead and turn back in the middle. And what this could indicate is a PI occiput, so I'll just go ahead and pressure test like this. Then I'll double check the legs, and if that perfectly balances, I will check for right and left torque, and then I'll set up like this. And if it's not a PI occiput, then we check the coccyx like this. And so if that were perfectly balanced the legs, this is how you would set up for a coccyx. Straight like this. And then anytime you adjust the coccyx, you also have to adjust the sphenoid. So can you turn your head to the right, please? And then to check for sphenoid, you would just check north, east, west, and south. And then you would check every time, so you'd swipe up and double check the legs, swipe down, double check the legs, and whichever way it perfectly balances, that's the way you adjust. So say it balanced this way, going up, you do a tissue pull up, and then that's how you would set up the integrator. Alright, head back in the middle. Okay, so that covers, no, that doesn't cover. So we just did occiput and coccyx. So now, if that's not the case, we double check again, and then we could have C5 have gone posterior inferior, and then you check. So I just want to just say that coccyx and sphenoid do not have torque. But for occiput, we checked for torque, and then for C5, we would check for torque. And then this would be how you would set up for C5, posterior inferior. This would be the liner drive. If it's not C5, then it could be C1, like that. And then if it's not that, it could be T6. So T6, like this. Again, we're checking for right and left torque the whole time, and then going back to double check the legs to see what perfectly balances. And then if it's not any of those, then it could be lateral atlas once again. So we would check lateral atlas, pressure test, go check the legs, check right or left torque, go check the legs. And then again, set up for lateral atlas, just straight lateral to medial. Okay, so that does cover bilateral cervical syndrome. Now we go to possibility 1, which can be a lateral occiput. So you go along the nuchal line, and then you just pressure test straight lateral to medial. And then you double check the legs, and then you check right torque, check the legs, left torque, check the legs. Whichever perfectly balanced, then the line of drive would just be straight lateral to medial on the occiput. And then the other possibility it could be lateral sacrum. So you just check like that. And then if the leg's perfectly balanced, you want to check each individual sacral tubercle from S1 to S4. So you go like this, lateral to medial, double check the legs, that's S1, S2, S3, S4. And then whichever one perfectly balanced the legs, you would adjust, also checking for torque at each segment. So you're just straight lateral to medial on whatever segment you found perfectly balanced the legs. And if that's not it, it can be again coccyx. So you go like that, double check if it balanced the legs. Like I said, you go like this. This is how you would set up. This has no torque. And then since we adjusted the coccyx, we would check the sphenoid again, like I showed earlier. Go ahead and turn your head to the right, please. Just swipe, check the legs, swipe in each direction, check the legs. And this also has no torque, and then set up. Or if it was like this, whichever way it was. All right, head back in the middle. Now we're going to possibility 3. So I'm checking the legs, and it could be AI sacrum. So I'm just going to be, go ahead and come over here so you can see the pressure test. I'm just going to be right next to the ischial tuberosity. I'm just going to go superior and double check the legs. And if that perfectly balanced, this is how I would set up my instrument. Right next to the ischial tuberosity, and all of these pelvic adjustments do not have torque. So we don't check for torque for any of these. So if it's not AI sacrum, it could be AS trochanter. So I'll find the patient's trochanter, and then I'm just gonna swipe down, just like that. And then if that perfectly balanced the legs, then I'll go ahead and adjust it. Holding the instrument like this. Okay, and if that's not it, then it could be a PI ilium. So I'm checking. I find his PSIs and swipe up. So let's say that perfectly balanced the legs. So I go back to his PSIs, and then I hold the instrument like this. And the last possibility it could be a superior pubic ramus. So what I'm going to have to do is, can you please squeeze my hand? Good, and relax. And if that were the subluxation, then the short leg would actually draw shorter. So let's say that it did that. Can you please flip over on your back? So that was your right leg, and this is your right side. Okay, so to double check myself, can you put your fingers at your belly button and make a triangle? Do you feel that hard bone right there? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So I'm just gonna swipe down like this, and then I can actually double check. And then if that is the adjustment, if it perfectly balanced the legs, then I'm going back to the superior pubic ramus and going straight superior to inferior. And then that should perfectly balance the legs. That should cover possibilities 1, 2, and 3. All right.